The drop in birth rate, diversity in the classroom, government policies, even the retirement crunch of our current school administrators all contribute to changes that impact the education landscape. Teachers are pressured to keep up with these changes while maintaining a high standard of teaching quality. This makes the bridge between teacher education programs or professional development and classroom practice that much more important. How do changes in and outside the classroom affect professional practice? And do teacher education programs also reflect these changes? Undoubtedly, the expectation of parents and students change as well over time. At the teacher education program level, how do the various educational stakeholder groups work together to address the expectations and needs of students and parents? Our current and future teachers need to be well prepared for the realities of classroom practice. What is being done to ensure that this will happen? I'm Paul Shaker, and this is An Education Matter. Joining me on the program today is Susan Lambert, First Vice President of the BC Teachers Federation, which represents 41,000 teachers in our province. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Paul.
I thought we'd start by being a couple of veteran teachers ourselves in talking a little bit about today's classrooms versus the classrooms we began our careers in. I know you're in an unusually good position to know both what it was like in the past and what it's like right now. Could you reflect a little on this?
Yes, unusually well able to talk about the past. I started teaching about 35 years ago or more, and I think in those days there was very much less expectations on the classroom by society, by parents, by the community. The range of diversity in classrooms today is extraordinary. We have, I think, many lower mainland districts where more than 50% of the student population come from non-English speaking backgrounds, or immigrant children. We have the inclusion, and we absolutely think this is critical. We need to include all learners in public schools. So we have the inclusion of children with special needs. And that means that teachers have to be able to provide educational programs to students with very, very special learning needs, very unique learning needs. We have, over the course of my career, I saw the decrease in class size, and now we have increasing class size. And we have decreasing supports. We used to have teacher librarians in every school whose job it was to provide a library service, a collection, and support for classroom teachers. Now we have high schools where there are no qualified teacher librarians. We used to have learning assistance teachers who were charged with dealing with what we call the gray area kids, kids who have learning disabilities, who are able, if they've given some small group or one-on-one instruction, to catch up to the expectations of a classroom. Now those teachers are more and more serving to children with more unique special needs, what we call low incidence children. So there are many changing conditions that are, I think, increasing the burden on classroom teachers to provide educational programming for the individual students that they teach.
One of the things that caught my interest in the last couple years during discussions of how to move forward in BC public education was the idea of formulas that have a way of weighting a classroom to determine not all classes of 20 are the same. You know, some classes, very few of the children speak English. Some classes may have economic impact going on in that community. Some classes may have a disproportionate number of special needs students in them. What do you think about this formula approach to determining what the real challenge for a teacher is in a classroom in order to go beyond simply a number?
Yes, we know that when the composition of the classroom is such that it challenges a teacher to meet the individual needs of every child, we need to reduce the number of that classroom. And so what we're proposing is that when the composition of your classroom is so diverse and so complex, and you have children who do demand individual programming, that you reduce the numbers overall in that classroom to allow that to happen. If you don't reduce your classroom numbers, and you have, I've heard of teachers who have 7 or 8 children with individual education plans in that classroom, and no help. So what we're proposing is that with the increasing diversity in a classroom, then you must reduce that class size.
I know another program that is used in order to serve today's teachers to meet these challenging new classrooms is professional development and in-service. And I wondered if you could go into some of the specifics, because the Federation is a major provider of professional development for our teachers. If you could go into some of the specifics of how you bring new skills and knowledge to teachers while they're on the job, while they're in service, through professional development.
I think that sometimes there's a myth that pre-service education can provide everything to all student teachers, and that they'll come fully equipped to meet every challenge that is in their classroom, and that just can't happen. We have to develop in this province a comprehensive in-service training program that allows teachers to understand a specific unique child in their classroom, to keep up with ongoing research and inquiry into reading development, literacy, numeracy, all of the kind of general methodology where research is showing us where methodological practices can be changed. So we have 2 in-service components that we need to, I think, foster, and I don't think that they are sufficient in teaching today. So we need in-service for individual children that are integrated into classrooms, and we need ongoing professional development chosen by and directed by classroom teachers to meet what they have determined as areas that they would like to improve their practice on, and which is based on teacher inquiry, which is grounded in classroom practice, which is grounded in the experience of those who are most qualified, that is classroom teachers, to shape it. So we need professional development programs. The Federation is working, I think, hopefully more closely with universities to develop and implement those programs. We're talking about teacher inquiry programs, mentorship programs that are ongoing, and we need those kind of shorter in-service training programs for each classroom teacher that is specifically tailored to address the inclusion of children with unique special needs.
I'm surprised how many people don't know about our field programs. We have about a dozen different field programs that last for 2 years and result in a graduate certificate that are on different themes like diversity or the arts or special needs. And we have over 800 teachers, current teachers enrolled in those programs. So I suppose this has been one of the criticisms over the years, which you were speaking of, is you can't do it in a just drive-by or a one-shot. There has to be follow-through and an opportunity for teachers to try out what the training is about, and then to come back to it and to have expert consultation, to return again, to try again, because you don't learn these things overnight.
What we're talking about, and one of the basic principles of our policy on teacher in-service training is that every teacher should be a reflective practitioner, someone who is engaged constantly in critically analyzing their practice and determining their own professional development needs, because that is much more relevant. If your professional development is grounded in your experience in your classroom, it's relevant and therefore implemented, and that's the kind of practice that we would like to see.
Now, the way this is typically a difference between here and the United States and some other provinces in Canada is oftentimes there's a specialized license people earn in order to advance themselves as a teacher and deal with special topics within the profession, like a reading certificate, or special ed might be divided into 3 or 4 areas like speech pathology or severely disabled. Here in British Columbia, we don't adhere to that policy. We adhere to an alternative way of delivering these skills. We don't have these alternative licenses. Can you describe why our system works when most systems do attach themselves to specialized licenses? How do we provide a coherent program focused on a set of skills for a person outside of the structure of a special license?
Well, I'm not sure that we don't have special, what we would call special. We have diploma programs. We have reading recovery training. We have some areas where teachers, or some programs where teachers get specialized training if they are pursuing a specialization. I became a teacher librarian. I took a teacher librarian diploma. There's ESL diplomas, there's learning assistance diplomas, and so there are ways for teachers in training, or in practice I should say, to develop and hone specialized skills, and we expect that to happen. We expect teachers who do move from a generalized classroom assignment into a specialized area to take ongoing professional development and get specialized.
Here, I notice, more is entrusted here to the professionalism not only of the school people but of the trustees. And what I hear oftentimes is, well, we wouldn't put a teacher in a classroom we didn't feel they were qualified for. So the formal licensing isn't always there, but the standards of the profession and of the trustees and the other people who govern education seems to make up for this. I guess that's why some of us worry about TLMA, because you're bringing a different culture from a different province in, and we're not sure how well it'll mesh. It might mesh in plumbing or welding, but whether it meshes in a profession like education, some of us have concerns over. Have you taken a position on TLMA at the Federation?
Yes, we're very concerned about TLMA. We see TLMA, there's two concerns, basic concerns. First, as you say, it's going to increase an inflexibility because there'll have to be agreement with Alberta if we were to change any teacher training, any aspects of our teacher training program once we've entered into, and I think we have entered into this agreement. So it's going to make us more inflexible, less ready or able to change to meet need. But additional to that, what we are concerned about is that there are aspects of TLMA that are going to undermine the quality of teacher training in this province. There's some requirements to eliminate some aspects of our current teacher training programs, and we don't want to undermine that quality. We think that right now we have basically 5-year programs with extended practicums, some requirements for specialization for secondary teachers in content, for science teachers to take lab courses, and several of those requirements are going to be undermined by this agreement with Alberta through TLMA, and that is of huge concern to us because it's one of our basic tenets is that we want to maintain a very highly qualified teaching force in BC. Any programs or any actions to undermine that, we will oppose.
Thank you. When we come back, more to come in our discussion about preparing teachers for classroom realities.
For more than 40 years, the Faculty of Education at SFU has been delivering academic programs that are innovative and responsive. Based on the academic research of our professors and the expertise of practicing teachers from your communities, our programs are designed to meet classroom needs. As a community, we're piecing together a successful education experience for students today and in the future.
My guest today is Susan Lambert, First Vice President of the BCTF. Susan, we were getting onto the topic of teacher education, and that's been my career since I left the public school classroom in the early 70s. I know that you and the BCTF have some ideas about teacher ed, and we in the universities are most interested because we hope to be collaborative in the development of any reforms or renewals of teacher education in the province. What are some of the ideas that are prominent in your discussions among your membership about what they would like to see in British Columbia's teacher education?
Well, we need in teacher education programs to address the diversity in classrooms. We have increasing numbers of children without English backgrounds, so ESL programs are now not only, they're not an adjunct, they're the norm. Teachers themselves in classrooms have to be able to present programs to children of all nationalities, all backgrounds, all experiences. And so ESL is a major component, we believe, of teacher education training. And we also are looking to our most vulnerable populations, and specifically children of Aboriginal ancestry. And we need to, I think, teacher training programs need to include a component on the Aboriginal culture and history, and the legacy of residential schools on that population. And we need to have sensitivity to and awareness of how education programs and schools treat children of Aboriginal ancestry, and we need to prepare our student teachers for that. I think that's critical. I think that we are expecting teacher training programs. We expect a lot of teacher training programs, but I think this fundamental expectation is that student teachers have to be aware that we are an inclusive system. We're an inclusive society. We are an increasingly diverse society. And they must have the tools, the resources, the skills, the training to be able to teach to that diversity, to recognize that there is gender inequality, that there is racial discrimination, that there is bullying, that there is social justice and equity issues that have to be taught in schools. And because we are creating a democratic society that is inclusive, and that these children will be expected to participate in and have agency in shaping. And as teachers, we are role models for that. So we expect teacher training programs to provide that.
Well, of course, I'm not interviewing myself, or I'd have a lot of things to say about this too, but a couple of things I should mention so that we get them into our discussion are the design basically here is 4+1 or 4+2. In other words, you get an undergraduate baccalaureate degree and then you come back for 3, 4, 5 semesters of teacher preparation. But this is BC. California does it this way, but not everywhere in North America does it this way. Most places in the United States anyway have an integrated 4-year program. We now are starting a direct entry Bachelor's of Education program, so you come in as a first-year student and you begin to do not only your general education and your major, but also education studies. Now this has the advantage that you can spread out the field experiences and the learnings, and you can see when you take a class in, for example, psychology or mathematics, how you would use that later on as a teacher. I don't know if the Federation has thought much about direct entry programs, but myself, I'm an advocate for this approach because I think it's kind of unnatural to try and cram everything in to an add-on program at the end of a regular baccalaureate degree.
I think that we would support that program. I think that the idea of being able to apply learning to your educational goal throughout your undergraduate degree is one that would strengthen. It can only strengthen the applicability of what you learn in your practicum and throughout your degree program. And I think that that's a very beneficial innovation. I worry there is one drawback, because sometimes high school students going into university do not have a goal set initially. So they take a general BA, and throughout that 4-year term they're looking at options and maybe increasingly attentive to a teacher
So you're worried
goal.
It would preclude people changing majors?
Yeah, well, I think that it may. I wanted to become a teacher ever since I was in grade 2, so
Bingo,
it doesn't apply to me. But I do know of people who have student teachers who have gone into teaching at the end of a BA.
Yes, and of course it shouldn't work that way. Now you've pointed out to something else that's of considerable importance, which is it's elementary education that most typically, at least in my career, I found that strong vocation that goes back to early life. And that's the program we're usually talking about with direct entry. For secondary, people intending on secondary education, so much of their time will be spent in the major. It's the elementary student who could use more of an ability to take the right courses in an undergraduate curriculum so that they learned about social justice, for example, and BC and Canadian history and the story of the residential schools. They could learn those things in their general education if the opportunity were there to take the right history courses and social science courses and so on.
If you can design your BA degree with a goal of teaching in mind, then you're making different choices and much more relevant choices.
In my experience, young people who want to be, or any person who wants to be a teacher, appreciates that. They would like to get double duty out of their general education and their major.
And I think there's also a crunch. Well, there's a huge expectation of that very short 1.5 years, 3-semester program. We're laying on to universities an expectation to be able to teach a cultural diversity, to be able to teach to every physical disability, every mental disability, every content area, reading specialist, literacy, numeracy specialist.
I think we all fall back on that, into that trap, and you're right. We are preparing a beginning teacher, and the next step should be to get a job and have an induction program. Now, so far, yes, mentorship, induction, that bridges the next couple years, because that's when we lose so many new teachers.
Yes, it has to bridge the next couple of years, because in the first 5 years of teaching, we found up to 50% of people are failing out or retreating from teaching because of the unexpected intensive experience of a brand new teacher. But I don't think it stops at year 5. I think it has to be career-long. And that's one of the we're a union of professionals, and we believe in career-long professional development.
Well, we wanted to talk about that, that key phrase that you used to describe the BCTF. Now, let's talk about a union of professionals. Can there really be such a thing, or is this a vision, an ideal that maybe is unattainable? A union and a professional organization, there's some conflicts built into linking the two, aren't there?
Well, we don't only believe in the ideal, I think we practice it. So we have, I think, 3 founding principles or 3 pillars of our unionism. We're a prudential union, we take care of our members, but we're also a social justice union. And so we are advocates. We're, I think, actively engaged in what I call making the world a better place, as simple as that. But we're also a union of professionals. We believe strongly in highly qualified, highly trained, very dedicated people in the system. We believe in maintaining what we call the best, or one of the best, education systems in the world. That is our passion. We believe each and every one of us, each and every one of the 41,000 teachers in BC has an obligation to maintaining and improving the quality of education that we deliver. So that means reflective practice, that means being engaged in the development of public policy, that means advocating on every front for improved resources and an improved system.
Now, what that opens up, however, as you well know, sometimes you're criticized, the union is, the Federation, for being too political. How do you respond to people who say that you've gone beyond the bounds of a professional organization and you've entered into the life of the politics of the province?
The development of public policy is, I believe, a responsibility of the profession, a fundamental policy, obligation of the profession. If practicing classroom teachers are not engaged in shaping public education policy, then that public education policy is not relevant to the classroom teacher or the needs of children. There must be an absolutely integral influence of practicing classroom teachers in shaping public policy. That's the politics. Public policy is the politics of the profession. And I'm not only not ashamed, I'm very proud when classroom teachers become engaged in that, because I think that's a fundamental role of the profession.
Thank you, Susan. We'll be right back.
Parenting is the most awesome human adventure anyone can undertake. I really want to point to the right spirit behind parenting, which is learning with the children and learning from children. Personally, I would say my two children were the greatest teachers I ever had. I cannot imagine me arriving at this point of human maturity without them, without their teaching to me. They are the greatest gifts to me.
In many ways, the BCTF is a unique organization in North America. There is a tradition of activism and a commitment to advocacy that we rarely find so fully realized in unions or professional organizations. Of course, the Federation is a bit of both, calling itself a union of professionals. Some commentators also say it is a political party in all but name. The BCTF takes on quite a balancing act. It must advocate for the economic advancement of teachers while staking out moral high ground as their professional voice. The public in BC has been generally supportive and changed the direction of the schools through its support of the 2005 job action. The challenges facing BC schools are rising. Childhood poverty continues to linger, more students have special needs, including second language learning, and some of our communities continue not to complete their education. An energized teaching force in dialogue with the public and our other education stakeholders is vital to addressing these issues. BC has made progress in sustaining this conversation in the past 2 years, but we are in need of structures that institutionalize and make public this ongoing communication. Political paradigm shifts are in the air in North America. A nonpartisan and intellectually vital approach to education dialogue and policymaking could, in British Columbia, bear considerable fruit, as we are seeing happen in Ontario. I think the BCTF is ready to be a partner in this new type of conversation. Thanks for tuning in to Your Education Matters.
For more information about this show, or to view past episodes, go to the Your Education Matters website at www.youreducationmatters.ca. The views and opinions presented in this program are not necessarily those of all faculties, staff, or administration at SFU.